Good morning, everybody. Well, so many things happened over the weekend, right? Probably in your own lives, along with all around the world. And sometimes we wonder, how do we put it all together? How do we define ourselves in that experience of all that's going on around us? Because we are a part of that. We have to remember that every thought and experience and how we feel goes into the universe and is participating in what we see. It's no different than how you do positive intentions and things every day, knowing it's going to create the future experience of you. So today we're doing the Eye of Horus series, so I thought it would be a perfect day to put some insight, no pun for my word, about our perception of things and how each of us are getting along and what we're seeing and thinking inside ourselves about all the wonderment of things. So let me say hello, and then we'll set the energy, and I think probably have a wonderful discussion. So, good morning, Chase. Oh, thank you for your kind words. And Carol, good morning. Kathy Marino. She's wishing us a safe week. Yes. And let's all expand that to knowing we all have a safe week. No, it's done. Looking forward. Good morning, Barbara. All right, so that's where we are. Welcome, everybody. I appreciate everybody who comes. So I've set the pyramid of the blue flame of protection from Gautama Buddha and the presence and the white energy around you. So let's call in Mother, Father, God. Have them come all the way down and sit within the heart and somehow let you know, whether it's a warmth or a tingling or an expansion, that they're there. They're there with you right now, this moment. We're going to welcome the phylums of the angels, if any of them would like to stop by and give their insight, and certainly to the Ascended Masters, which I work very closely with, if you were here today. And good morning, Marby. And to those of the universe who are beginning to find us interesting material to observe, you are welcome if you are on your path of light and live it as such. And thank you for coming, and please go out, everybody, and share what you are learning and the illumined truths that you find here. So let's do our mantra. I am the soul. I am the light divine. I am love. I am will. I am fixed design. Take a breath. Excellent. So this is reminding us that we are part of a whole, and that there is a place where our soul can be complete, united, and free, and we will move into a greater part of our spirit. So it is convincing by perception for the human to understand it doesn't get lost, it doesn't go away, but it moves along that journey with us. I've had many discussions of this with individuals, and there is a fear in consciousness about it, that for each of you who can hear me, if you can begin to embrace that human part of you that is afraid that they're going to be done and put in a hole. And no, The human goes right along with your journey. The more you can bring the healing into that human experience of you, the greater expansion it has because it grows. And as you're in the soul and soul experience of you, along with that which you're existent in, becomes too much to even point out. Where there are so many lifetimes that everyone's lived and the interactions. And that's why there's 144,000 parts of you that need that light to have that growth for your final experience. So I wanted to say, I assume some of you, maybe not all of you, got to see, if not the whole coronation, parts of it. And I wanted to bring attention to his ascension piece, where he was anointed with the oil and visited with Christ, God, whoever that you assumed for your own beliefs who that was. But you could definitely see the difference in his demeanor, that something powerful had happened to him. So I just want you to think about this because it was right there in front of you, and realize that there will be a shift in that moment. Doesn't mean that any part of you is lesser than. It means that a greater part of you has become more, and in the essence of that godliness. And perhaps that word believe is part of the perception today. And I think one thing the coronation brought to us is not that somewhere in England there's now a king, but a demonstration on some level of that which is similar to the perceived experiences and feelings of ascension as it comes. Certainly, it's an ascension in the form of humanity, but yet everyone acknowledges it as more than that. So I'm just saying, for a part of you that doesn't have a clue as to what that's like, having the opportunity to feel and to see that, and when there is oil or holy water given with a special intent, it can make powerful feelings arise and come up from deep within and illuminate others. So it was a wonderful experience in the sharing of it. And I know we've probably all seen clips of when the Queen that passed, but it was always little bits and dips. So here we got to see him before and how different he looked afterwards. And that he called from his energy for another level of respect, which changed from how it was before. So we all have this within us, the capacity, the ability. But another way I wanted to look at the perception is, how do you think of yourself? I personally do know of people who believe they're there and they're not. And is it our job to point that out? Only if the certain circumstance arise. Sometimes when someone's way taking the reins with the word control, I will mention something because we have to understand personality. Now, personality most existent within our human experience. The first, second, third, and some of the fourth chakra are each of your personalities. So when do we know this is existent? When we have reactions. When we react to people from our emotional state, or from I'm just leaving, that root chakra. Those kind of, I'm going to call it a tantrum, occur from the personality, not from the soul level. So when you've gotten to where you don't have that stamping your foot or overwhelmed by someone else's behavior, instead of always taking the opportunity to look at every situation and what is it about you? What is it within you that's feeling out of place or not fulfilled? Or how are you not being loving and seeing the light in someone instead of the reaction? So that tells you right there where you come out of humanity and into the soul, when you no longer start to have a reaction, that you can appreciate another person is also going through the journey, and they may not be yet where you are or where you think you are, but we need to honor and respect that they are there, and it's not that it's bad. It's a journey, and each of our journeys are going to get us where we're going. So it's always to be in the loving embrace and honor of every soul, because the journey isn't always wonderful and perfection, because there's those of us who have things to learn in those journeys and incidences that need to occur so that we have to look at them. But if given time to have the correct perception about it, uh, things get better quickly. They're not held on to. It's more that young teenager energy that holds the grudge. And some of you may find teenagers locked inside of you along the way, and that it's that part of you that's still been holding on to something. It doesn't really, it's part of the unveilment of who you are, is to allow these parts of you to have a place that they can come forward and act out and have a loving voice say to them, that's fine. Do what you need to do. How would you like for me to help you get rid of it, transform it, to change it? Because as we become into our soul level, that's even going to become more of a possibility as we're becoming deeper on our journey. And the soul, in one healing, can have 100 other pieces of the soul left in other lifetimes that all need to come together to really let something go. So when you clear something, let's say through the throat chakra, that's a soul pattern. Many times I've seen maybe thousands of soul parts gather together from wherever they're called forth from and released it on that level is a huge shift versus doing it just on yourself. So if you can contemplate that for a moment, it's the power of healing and understanding that we're greater than we think we are, and the depth of which we have become just in our journey of development. Wherever our soul began, it's been working and evolving from the beginning of time. And all of us, I would almost say, from very early, have a part of us that came out at that early time. And we have those places deep within us that are yearning to become free and to remember freedom again. Perhaps even from the incident of the apple, who knows? But that's why healing is so powerful, because it gives you the opportunity to change the perception about yourself. And then here's my next level of this discussion, is what about our perception of, for instance, our world right now? You know, I've said before, and I'll say it here again today, the world lies within us. And if you think about the world, our perceptions are all going to be different, because who we are and the brain that those thoughts move through and the consciousness that our thoughts move through, they're all different, and that's fine. That's what makes it a wonderful thing. But this weekend, we truly, from the heavens, were told that we don't go anywhere without protection completely around us, protecting our home, our car, our bank accounts, our money. So I am passing that on to all of you, not with any fear being created. It's just what needs to become the norm. Because in that world and that energy, there are other energies that are also being developed, and they need not touch us. They need not become a part of our world unless we desire them to. So if there's one out there who forgets or, that's okay. That's fine, because that's you. We all have choice. But for those who hear me and want to help change their world more into light, be protective. It's available for you in many different ways. You can do the tube of light, surround it with the flame of blue from Buddha with protection. However it is, choose the violet flame. There are many more than enough that you know to do to protect who you are, where you're going, and where you live, and all that you have, and not affecting the other world. The world will continue to be as it is, and perhaps there'll be at a time, hopefully, when there will be world peace. For the greater our consciousness becomes a vibrational entity of existence, the more we can have it move through the consciousness of the earth and touch and say hello to people and say, it's time to change now. It's time to give it up. Enough is enough. So today I wish that from my heart to all the world, and perhaps to beyond the earth, into the galaxies of the universe. It is time now to truly let the experience and the relationship of love to define itself in the peace and harmony that it's truly meant to be. As Jesus would say, see the love in everyone. Imagine our world today if it could be different, if that could be our motto that we move to and acted through first. See the love, see the light, as every soul has been offered it. Whether or not they choose to live it or have it is a freedom that they own. And certainly if any of them feel they're pressured and can't, they can certainly have somewhere, a church or someone here, even if it's on YouTube somewhere, that will help them move through that. So isn't perception such an interesting word to be one that we just simply learned in school and talked about perception? That today it's a perception of how our chakras are spinning. And what do they hold within them? What are they saying to consciousness, to ourselves, and to the world, and to others? It's all speaking. More and more people are becoming telepathic. So tell me if I'm not wrong. Sometimes you look at someone and you can already skip the feedback. There's a greater development than perhaps for me 10 years ago, 20 years ago when I was in the process. It's all so much more now. So you must try to be quiet and allow it to come to you. Perhaps not every little thing, but you can get insight. And the more you clear yourself and allow your own distortions to move out of the way, the clearer those perceptions will be. That's what it is all about, is having a clear channel, which I myself have worked years for. Because then you can see truly other people and their wounds, if they're ones who carry them so that Why would I see a wound as if someone really wants to heal it? So they're asking for help. Those who don't want to heal something will hide it with a lot of busyness over it. So if you would see and sense a lot of busyness or chaotic catharsis, as it's called, um, in a certain area, you would know there's something deeper that's underneath. So yes, there are those people that are completely chaotic and declare they're perfect. I've met them. I'm sure you've met them. And I'm not saying that they're bad. Uh, it's their choice. We have to become accustomed to the understanding that it's a choice. As much as we want choice, we don't want other people to miss their choice. That's the whole point. Excuse me. So, yeah, then we can go into thinking about the word choice, meaning that in every single thought, we have a choice in the perception we place upon it as we put it out into the world. Contemplate that for a moment with me. We can think, oh, I'm hungry, and think of all the delicious things that are maybe not so healthy for your body. Or we can think, oh, I'm hungry, and think of the salad and the vegetables that are waiting to go within and work within your body and bring a greater strength and happiness on a soul level to you. So many different ways that all starts from thought. And that's the magic of the brain when you really go to look at it and to understand its component with us is that it has the capacity to bring thoughts to life. And I really do mean that. Thoughts are powerful. Thoughts are things. It's not just something that you put out and it dies. Oh no, it has a life. Thoughts have things. I learned this in the subconscious work. They put little clothes on and they go out and will bring back 1,000 little things with the same clothes on with the same thought, and then you become bigger and bigger and in more trouble. So when those thoughts come to you, you want to do your best to try to work through things because they'll only keep coming in a different way. Each time it's going to be more difficult. And why not just love it? Stop, take time, love the part of you that drew it to you, love the situation, have an understanding that maybe it's one component of the people in it, that it's their issue, not yours, and let yourself back away. Clear the part that's yours and bless them because you cannot make it happen for the other person. You can only perceive and love the light that you see. So, I told you perception was a very good word today. So, do I have questions out there who want to join into this conversation with me about perception? And I'll tell you a perception that I thought was interesting to hear as I watched the coronation. The different perceptions of the queen, whatever she was called before, she's now the queen. And I have to say, all I can think about was Lady Diana. And I understand that is within me and the Queen of Heart that she was. And I'm sure uh, there are those in England for how much she was loved who thought of her that day too. And but we have to see the light. That's not our choice. We didn't make all that happen. But we can choose to hold that within ourselves in a higher light, in a place of love and acceptance. I have spoken to Lady Diana in spirit a few times, and her greatest concern is feeding the children here upon earth. I did not hear one. When even I asked her about her sons, she said, well, they're alive and they're living their lives. She certainly had gotten the part that it wasn't any longer a part of her process, that she had set them free And she worked a lot with the Dalai Lama, still does. And but there was a lot of that energy I felt on Saturday of that perceptual thought thing going along with people. A lot of things that weren't spoken. So some people would say that was their karma. Many blessings, as it's making my head go blah, blah, blah. Observation. We must learn to become the observer, not the participant, you see. So I know where Lady Diana is. She's very happy and wishing well for there not to be a hungry child. And if you pay attention, you notice more. We're seeing it more and more to heal the children and make sure that everybody has food. And that was her heart, is the children in the world. So if you're one like myself, that this is Lady Diana, you can help in some way with children and the food to those that somehow came in being lost. We don't always understand it, but I do know it's to help the lost part of the child within us. When we see it, when we see a child that doesn't have everything we need, we take a moment and we look at, well, where's that within me if I have a ping in my heart, you see? And it's not that I never had food, but perhaps in the family there was a lot of unrest during dinner. Or I usually got up early and ate with my mom and dad without my brothers. So I made a choice not to be in that. But everybody has something somewhere because we're all one. And somewhere inside that unrest is existent. And now, in this time, as the unrest has become very right in front of our face, we choose to not participate, at least for me. You are a choice. And by doing that, I will be very protected, that my light remains my light no matter where I am, who I speak to, and what I do. And I offer that truth to you. But, God loves those children. And in his own way, he's following that request of what each soul makes when they choose to come back into this world. A lot of them are very high masters who've chosen to come back to have that child live that way for us all to have to heal. It's very interesting ways that you don't think about why things are the way they are. Just like now, there's all this conflict about guns and the killing. Well, no, there's a purpose to it somewhere. Perhaps we're not yet all ready to see it. This is probably a lot of the karma due to like the 100-Year War. You can tell that with the, oh dear, I don't have water today. The 100-Year Wars, many of all the tragedies of time. And for this burst before the earth ascends, it must clear all that out. How else do we do things but having them manifest? So we can ask for ease for that. And it doesn't have to be so dramatic or breathtaking, meaning taking life. And that we can have a greater willingness and understanding that there's a growth about war. Because even though we could say, well, we're not at war, Spirit will say it's a time of war. And it's perceived that way. So it's time for protection. Now, how many times has Spirit spoke that word through me, huh? Numerous times, and I hope you hear me. Not to frighten you. It's not very difficult to do protection for yourself. and to keep yourself in a high state, to not give credence to any panic or trauma that you hear. Just bless it and know that it'll find its way in unraveling. That's the best that any of us can do, is know that it will unravel. When the light touches it, it will begin. It may not be that you see it or hear it or a part of it, but when from a heart of truth light is released to help another, so shall it be. And just trust that. And that's a part of growth, and trusting it or not. So I do not see any questions, my goodness. We can all, yes, have perceptions about the flowers in the world. We watched the series of the elephants. I don't know if anyone here did. There was 4 of them. People who studied for long periods of time the 4 places where elephants lived and how differently they lived by how their conditions had changed. And it was just very fascinating how people around them began to understand what they were missing and changed the people's way so that the elephants could survive. Certainly they're all in concern about extinctness, but we're talking in the Congo, they only have like a 1/4 mile wide trail of trees to still live in and to move through. That's it. So what they did is what they're doing is they are cutting down all the palm trees. So now the elephants follow them, and when they down the palm trees, they eat those greens and the seeds of the palm oil to survive. And how unique the brain and all these experiences of life are to even have that come to them to know. You know, it was a very interesting series. I believe it was on National Geographic. I don't know if you could still get it, maybe in the archives. But while you think, well, that might be boring, it was very, uh, you don't think they're like us, and they are just like us. The family all follows each other. There's miles and miles away they would travel to all the whole big family meet, like 200 elephants, and to get along and see new babies. It was just like what all of us would do as humans. And I guess when you think about all these different animals in the world and how they go and meet and do the same things, it makes you stop and think, who said we were so special? We're just a part of. We're part of the whole consciousness of everything. And how we think and believe and put that awareness out into the world it's phenomenal. So elephant happens to be my totem for my root chakra. You know, that strong. But you know, some of them have short trunks and long tails. Others have the long tail and long trunk and the short tail. Some of them have tusks. I mean, they were all different. And I never was aware, for me, maybe you already are, that they were all unique and different depending on where they lived. One traveled to the ocean because the mineral that they needed was salt. And there was something that was there by the ocean that made psychedelic experiences. So the lady said she doesn't know what happened to them that night after eating that all day, but they certainly were happy. Excuse me. But interesting that they all always, every year, the sea salt in the water gathers itself up on the plants and the beach. And they fill themselves with it for enough to last them on their journey back inside some riverbanks, and it'll be down in the soil. And they'll take their trunk like a mixer and go down and mix it up and be able to inhale the minerals up through the water. I'm telling you, it was very fascinating of how everyone adapts. And maybe the question for us now is, how are we adapting? And I guess what I'm saying to you, adapt by some people speaking out. I don't choose. I guess I'm kind of speaking out here, but in a low level. But speaking out by just sharing what's possible and let your light shine. Because as long as you have your protection up, it shines out, not in. And that's what our world needs right now, is we're all in an evolution process. Is the more of us that do, the more light there is upon the earth, and the greater peace of earth will happen. No questions? Let's see here. Who's here today? Well, 6 are still here. Maybe, what do you have perceptions about that now that I've shared, you didn't even realize that they were? Oh, here's Barbara. I knew you would, Barbara. Yes, you got to go on. I hope some way you have to find it. One was the rainforest, one was India, one was the Congo. They went to Thailand, but these elephants are actually different and live differently and have learned. They actually kept video of the elephants. I forget which one it was, but they had started to put up electrical wiring so they couldn't get through to where all the fruit was. Well, they started watching the elephants, and they finally figured out, now listen to this, how to go to the tree, to take a limb from a tree and unhook that wire from the trees to stop the electricity, and it was safe to cross. Now, you tell me that's not a little strange. They had it on video. They showed it. These animals, and then shortly, people would start to hear them and they'd chase them off. But that's how much they kept them from food. And they were determined to have that food. And that's what they did. So if you can get to where you see those, I think that one was Rainforest. It was the last two that had that video somewhere in there. But we were riveted to the television to keep hearing and how they would just follow each other without any water. And they find it. They always find it. And they teach each other in their memory where it is. So, thank you, Barbara, for your question and your thought. Yes, it was very fascinating. But if you're like me and you see all things a part of the whole, it's even more fascinating, because what yet do we have within us that we're not even beginning to prickle at? They say that yes, I watch Ancient Aliens too, that they're starting, all of a sudden our DNA is starting to fuse together to have us be a different being, like what we know now, that's higher, more awake and aware. You got to know that hits a few things, because I work on the DNA, and it made perfect sense what I was doing. So it was very, very fascinating. Who's to know what's coming? All we know is, no matter what, God's going to be with us, and everything's going to be fine, because that's how it's written. God's always there with you. So, let's see, who wrote this about discussion today? Barbara. Okay, Chase, Carol. Well, that's about where I'm becoming what you call the tank's empty. And I'll see you tomorrow to offer more messages as I go through the doors, never knowing what I'm going to find. And Love to everybody. I hope every day your love becomes more intense and more gratifying and more of a participant in the part of you that needs passion. The passion to continue to grow and to learn and to live. I was talking to my daughter yesterday, when she's 17 years younger than me, and I said, Heather, you got to start living every moment. She was out riding her white motorcycle. She decided as a whim, and got a Harley, of course, and she was out with like 200 ladies riding. And they started going around curves and really steep turns. She said, Mom, I just pulled over and decided this isn't my thought of what it was for me to ride a motorcycle. So she learned a big lesson. She didn't have to follow the group. And she's going to ride her motorcycle the way she wants to, maybe go with a few people. But going 75 miles an hour and going down a steep turn, I said, Heather, I'd have no part of it. I'd be screaming. She said, well, the scream was there. I didn't let it out. But it did frighten her. So, we all reach points when we have to make a choice. And maybe be different than other people and respond differently. And that's good. That's a good thing when you can begin to follow your heart, know what it says inside, and start moving your feet towards that new direction. Let's see. Okay. Yes, they showed how the elephants were a family together. And I'm telling you how smart they were. They figured out how to undo electricity. Now, I'm not so sure any of us would just go and do that. But see, they don't have that's a bad thing. They knew they needed to eat. And they showed them pulling up a twig, hitting the thing, and making sure there weren't any sparks from it, and then they could all walk over it. Amazing. And Kathy's saying, thank you, thank you. And I say thank you so much for coming. And if you're there, hit the like button, and we're just going to keep growing, all of us. Many blessings. Have a wonderful day. Be safe.